episode for higher juicy news. Mima Ubibia Aquaba had the latest hot Nkwa Eramene Bremo. And uti so young subscribe to channel dia Bomodia say over subscribe. The way I say over click a year subscribe button you know. Na wabele notification we understand video for be upload no when the first person on sa ebeka a year sa video afi we are na like video no give us a thumbs up na fe share ma wo fufro na when you be here na wo hu ensem ekoso e wo Ghana memu ha no afi ye hwe ye ensem abeto ye no so yenti a year sa report ya ababeto you guys hansem we yenti
general overview right general okay so you know, this matter of 146, right, and everything it has brought so far, where I would want to start from is that, you know, curious enough, when the Chief Justice was being vetted, all right, that was in 2023, yeah. When she was asked about what changes she wants made to the Constitution, what should be reviewed in the Constitution, is this saying 146 she mentioned? She mentioned that the president should not have a role to play in the removal process, everything, all right? That's 146. And I've always wondered why, when she came in, she was quiet. At least she didn't even organize a lecture on it. She didn't gather us that let's brainstorm, nothing. Was it that the power was now sweet, so she had forgotten? I mean, it's strange, because every day I look at it, I was like, because that day she made that statement, I was very happy that, yes, here was a woman at a vetting who thought that, yes, though you've appointed me, if something is wrong in the Constitution and that touches even the president himself, she would say it. But she entered office and it became a closed book. Nobody heard anything. And today, here we are. Next point is that, you see, this statement by Ayaga that they are going to amend, etc., cannot be used as grounds to stop the current removal process. No, we don't do that in law. We don't do that. Otherwise, then the logic of it will suggest that for all the laws that Parliament is about to pass, if there is any action being taken using an old law, everything should stop. Yes, that's the logic. Because each time we are making a new law, then it's an admission that the old law has issues. So we want to improve. And so if we went by this suggestion that because we are about to amend we are about to bring regulations to help 146, we should stop the current proceedings. There will be chaos. It's an invitation to chaos beyond, I mean, my wildest imagination. Yeah, because it will extend. So those who have said so, please, let's reduce the politics. Let's reduce the politics. Even Justice Torkonoo, who has been affected, she said that was what she felt when they asked her. Yet for how many? Close to 2 years, she did nothing. So please, let's go slowly. Let's go slowly, right, on that particular one. Because sometimes, you see, when you hide behind politics and make all manner of arguments, sometimes the arguments are so preposterous that the rest of us feel insulted. Just because you want to advance your political ends, then you go and take a very small legal point and begin to blow it out. Yes, we feel insulted. So sometimes it's not every argument you make. No, it's not every argument. Sometimes you look at it, yes, it's an admission. But do you realize that, and lawyer Hesse made that point, the Ejetum case is almost 20 years old now. Yeah. That was President Kufuor's tenure. And in there, the Supreme Court said, let's amend the law. So for 20 years, we never amended. And now we are about to amend. Then you say, oh, then stop the current proceedings. Okay. 20 years. So from Kufuor to Atta Mills, to JM number 1, then to Akufo Addo, and then back to JM number 2. You see the point? So please, let's be careful on the argument about stop the process now and then let's, what do you call it, the law be amended. In any event, do you realize that this law, from what Mama Yarga, what he said, I think that you can't pass that law in less than 3 months. No. Because we, as citizens, we've not even had the opportunity to weigh in. We've not seen the draft, so we've not had an opportunity to make our input. And our input will be very useful. Because, look, there is one point. Well, I know it cannot change the Constitution, but maybe it's worth us mentioning so that we see. Look, When you look at 146, for instance, you see that one of the grounds for removal is incompetence. When you compare with the U.S. jurisprudence, they will tell you what they do in the U.S. They will tell you that the fact that a judge is not good, especially when it comes to rulings, when a case is put before a judge, the fact that he or she would get it often wrong, very, very wrong, violently wrong, etc., doesn't mean you can use that to remove that judge. But here in our constitution, we have incompetence. So the regulations that are going to be coming, I will be looking for it to see how are we expanding on incompetence. If you're saying that you can remove a judge because you got a ruling wrong, is that going to be grounds? Is that going to cause a lot of confusion in our system? There are a lot of other things we can't expand on in this program. So what I'm saying in a word is that I don't see how we can pass that law in less than 3 months. So if you were to say, so for those saying that we should wait and pass a new law, please, it will lead to too much chaos, right? Let's take time on it. Now, next point, the matter of the proceedings, the Chief Justice asking that the relations, at least the husband, be allowed in. You know me, I like to, see improvement. This process can be very traumatizing. So I know my learned friend, Chuberima, has said he doesn't agree that the spouse be allowed in. Please, you see, let's think, let's look. How are we making progress? Yes, the Constitution doesn't say who and who can attend, right? But I'm thinking that looking at the emotional, it's a lot. It's a lot. Going through impeachment, it's a lot.
Which means that an appeal could have been made to the committee instead of putting it in the supplementary affidavit.
Yes, I like that point. You see, yes, that probably would have found favor, and there could have been some negotiations. Yes, rather than the husband showing up there on the day, maybe if they had said something like they could have sent a letter ahead and then done some negotiations behind. But I think that her husband going in with her is a lot of support. Please, look, tomorrow Ghana is a continuum. I remember when MPP won 2017, because I was happy that GM had lost and the rest, I heard things like, hey, by the time NDC comes, it will be 40 years. It will be 40 years before NDC comes back. By Akufo Addo, by the end of the first term, it was clear that GM was coming. Akufo Addo had been so incompetent that it was clear that this GM was coming back. So please, this same thing, the way we are talking today, I hear the same thing. Hey, this one, by the time MPP comes, it will be 40 years. Please, let's be careful. So I'm in favor of the system allowing Justice Torkonoo's husband to go with her. Yes. Look, it doesn't matter. Yes, you can take me on. It's not everything we may find here, but the support helps. Let's not just do it like, this is the end of the world. No, we'll be here for,
lawyer, I was trying to think around why she put that in the supplementary affidavit, because you would realize that it is not the only point that she makes when she talks about commission of inquiries and the fact that there are rules governing that, and it should not be a question. Because when you look at chapter 23 of the Constitution, where 27A to 2A3 covering commission of inquiry, inherent in that is also article 156, which is the rules of courts committee. Now, so if we are equating a commission of inquiry to the high court, if she was actually going to the high court, she would have her family there without question. So could that be the reason why she put that in the affidavit?
Oh, as for that one, it will be difficult to tell why, but basically, the appeal or her request for her husband to go with her is something that's reasonable. I don't see anything that offensive about it. As I said, other lawyers will show. It's supposed to be secretive. Maybe if it is that the husband will be bound over to also, but even she as Chief Justice, when she goes in, they don't say that she should swear an oath not to talk about it, any secrecy about it. Nobody swears an oath to enter the committee. So the husband going with her may not require one. I'm just thinking ahead. What do we need? Yes, what do we need to make the husband eligible to attend? If she doesn't have to swear an oath of secrecy, on the proceedings. I don't think the husband has to, right? So we can. So, Kemini, I'm very happy that I show a lot of dexterity in interpreting the Constitution. So, you see why we keep saying that matters of law, we can't restrict to only lawyers. See where Kemini is come from. You see, we can't restrict to lawyers. Let's lay people who have
analysis that she was
yes. So, we may not know the reason, but me, it's easier for me that we can look at it and grant her that emotional support. Indeed. It would help. Now, let's make this point. You know, the supplementary affidavit, the Supreme Court struck it out because of the revelations of the secrets. So it's no longer part of the record.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's no longer part because of all the revelations she made. That so I don't even need to go to that. So please, for the record, that supplementary affidavit is no longer part of the record. It's been struck out. Okay, it's expunged. So officially,
I mean, but we are discussing.
Yes, we can discuss. But what I mean is that it's not.
Which is why we can touch also, each point.
And also, you see, for example, Professor came in to deny some of the allegations. Yes. You know, the Attorney General did not even get an opportunity to respond to it. So that's the Chief Justice rendition. That's her side. We didn't hear the Attorney General on it.
I mean, but to be fair, on the face of the document itself, I know I've received messages that it's not true that she was searched by a man. By a man. But on the face of the document itself, she only talked about body searches. She doesn't indicate the gender of the person who searched her. I don't know if that came up in court along the line, but that has been the narrative that we've heard since the...
So she's against being searched or what?
No, so she thinks that she shouldn't. Let me. In fact, why am I thinking for her when I can read? so let me read what she says on the bodily searches.
Okay.
On point 12, I believe, she says that other developments like the denial of access into the hearing room for my husband and children, searches on my body, denial of access to telephone and laptops for myself and my lawyer. She puts into brackets, even though counsel for petitioners have access to their phones and laptops, and the conduct of the hearing itself in a high security zone at the premises of the Castle Osu show a deliberate effort to subject me to mental torture and degrading treatment in violation of my fundamental human rights. So, Alex, it would appear that
the Osu Castle has been, I mean, the presidency has been moved from there years ago.
But it's still a security zone.
I know, but I mean,
is the historical depiction.
Oh,
is the historical depiction. The reason, you see, the historical reason why we had to go to India to get funds to put up Jubilee House is because of that history that we have. It has been a slave dungeon that had been used to trade human beings as goods of the transatlantic, in the transatlantic trade. So, I mean, having justice espoused at that particular place, it might not be found in the law book that, I mean, appearing before, you have to agree to venue A or venue B. But these are some of the things that El Fulham refers to. The administration of justice must inherently be fair. A just dispensation of law is a good law, you see. So it is not just what the law is, but there is a minimum theory of law or a minimum theory of law that positivists and natural lawyers or natural traditions of jurisprudence agree on. So that, yes, even though it is not indicated in Article 146 where the venue should be, but as a country, we would not want to have justice dispensed from there because of that historical connotation. So getting into the fort and seeing all of that, and justice is going to be dispensed in this.
Okay. So I'm on the ground.
Let me go on Zoom now.
I beg 1 second.
Oh, you didn't finish?
No, you didn't finish. We took the senior
1 second.
After the 1 second.
After the 1 second, we'll come to you. You finish for us.
Anywhere we are going to the court. Let me ask you a very simple question. Do you have body scanners at the entrance of the court? Or some courts in this country? If the answer is yes, what is wrong with somebody scanning you or searching you if something is on you? I'm a security person. I don't see anything wrong with this thing. Once you are scanned and there's something wrong with you, you are going inside with whatever thing that you have.
It's only the venue for me, but the searches.
I mean, there's nothing wrong. So if we have issue with searching, and now, so okay, even if they should move the proceedings from the castle and bring it to let's say the old state house, and still you're going to go through some security scans.
I mean, that's
you still have issues with it. I mean, come on. Let's face the reality and stop this thing. It doesn't add anything to the case.
Let me have lawyer.
So let me also wade into a bit of the philosophy, but not long like lawyer man. Professor Zato said for him, he sees the prince at play.
Yes.
So characterizing the removal process as the prince, that people are doing all this, I mean, the NDC is doing it, right? I hope that's a fair representation.
That's what?
You said the prince. You quoted the prince.
So
that's that's the prince. I also see the republic, Plato's republic, because he says that the leader, should seek justice. All right. So if the president has only played his role, right, in seeing that justice is brought, why would he say it's rather the prince? No. And you know, Plato is more received.
If you have a choice, if you have a choice to choose the Plato, I also have a choice to choose the
so at least
if you are seeking refuge under Plato, I'm also seeking refuge.
I guess so. Let me pick.
Last statement.
It would appear so.
And Plato's Republic, talking about the good leader and the good qualities of a leader, amongst them seeking justice, what is fair, kind, etc. It's a more favored book. It's a more received book. It's better received and serves as the foundation of Western philosophy, where we've copied all of the constitutional, etc. from Socrates. My argument has more support than the prince. The prince is for mean people.
I see, gentlemen, hang on. Let me bring in now lawyer Kweku Annan.
Yes.
Prof, I'll come to you. Don't worry. The basis of that supplementary affidavit, all she seems to point us is the process is not treating her fairly. And lawyer, I want us to pay attention to point 4, where she makes the original accusation pointing to unfair treatments. Point 6 and 7, where she says the committee is wrong for sitting on a day when she had previously given them the injunction application she filed, because she said, look, when we went to the hearing or the sitting of the committee, I had indicated through my lawyer that this was what was happening. There was an injunction against the process. They had asked for copies. She gave them the copies. Yet still, the day after, on a Friday, the committee still sat and heard the case. Then on point 8, she says the basis of the prima facie case have not been made available to her for her to prepare the defense to her charges. I want us to look at these issues before we come back to point 9. Lawyer, having gone through the supplementary affidavits, would you consider any substance in this at all? Well, lawyer Ansari, it would appear lawyer Ansari is not on. And so Alex, I guess it comes to you then. You've seen the supplementary affidavit and some of the things that I have indicated from this affidavit. She says that she hasn't received the basis for the prima facie case for which she's being, for which she's going through the process, and that she wants to have it so that she can prepare her defense to the charges. I was a bit confused by that because we know that the petitions were given to her. She responded to the Council of State. What do you think she may be referring to over here?
Well, I mean, the point is, when you, as you rightly indicated, even that process, as I mentioned earlier, was something that could have been ignored. But the president didn't do that. He went ahead to give you, and even gave you more days than you even requested for. You requested for 7, you were given 10. Now, you had ample time to write your response and give it to the president, and he passed it on to the, I'm sure, to the committee. Aside that, now you are raising issues of fairness, fairness. I stand to be corrected. What is the fairness? Lord Hope former president of the Supreme Court of England will tell you that fairness is like beauty. It lies in the eyes of the beholder. Who is looking at it is seeing something as fair or not. What is fair to you may not be fair to me. And likewise, what is fair to me may not be fair to you. What is this fairness that you are talking about? Under normal circumstances, the president could have ignored you by not even giving you even the entire process. You were given. You asked for 7 days. You have been given 10 days, and you are still saying the process is not fair. So what should be fair? What should be done to make it fair? Is it by putting cameras on you for every other Ghanaian in every part of the country to see you talking or your lawyers talking for on your behalf to make it fair? Or by bringing the process from Osu Castle onto maybe Independence Square for everybody to come and stand there and watch you? What to make it fair? I mean, you see, let's not be too emotional about these things. And like I said earlier, as lawyers, we deal with law and not emotions.
Why is just using the word emotion?
Okay, let's be more. No, I mean, if not emotional, why? Why this?
We are making submission dispassionately. It's not emotional.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about what Madam is trying to. To put up. It's emotional.
Oh no.
It's emotional.
No. You see, when more likely than not, when someone has made a point, save that she's putting her issues.
So the unfair part is what? Help me. The unfair part is what?
The point is that the point should be made. But when you say she's making,
I'm asking a very simple question. I mean, the unfair part is what?
Because she's arguing dispassionately in law. So it is for one to agree with her or not.
I agree.
But to run her intelligence down to say...
I'm not running her intelligence. I'm saying that where is the unfair part?
Once you cap the point or you slice it down that she's being emotional...
Counsel, you're not helping the situation. I'm saying that where is the unfair part?
No, it is a matter of law.
I mean, the amount of fairness keeps on coming on. I want to understand where the unfairness is.
No, I want us
so that's a good interrogation. But
where is the unfairness?
The use of the emotional
because I've made issues. I mean, I've raised points
of it
or arguments to the fact that you have been given more than you even asked for. So if you say that somebody is not being fair to you, where is the fairness? How should it be?
Give me a one.
Help us. Let us know that it should have been this, and it's not so. And you are doing this, so that is why I'm saying it is not fair. Where is the fairness? What should you do to make it very fair to you and to every other person surrounding you?
Well, she says give her the basis of the prima facie case so that she would prepare her defense. How about that? Now let's take that to. I'll come to you, Dr. Zato. I know you've been quiet for a little bit. When you start right now, we'll all keep quiet. But let's go to lawyer Kweku and asare now. Lawyer, we've been talking about the issue of the CJ asking for the basis for the prima facie case in order for her to prepare her defense, and we've tried to, draw a parallel between that and the fact that the president already gave her the 3 petitions for her to respond to. Is she asking for something she already has, or there is something really in law that she should receive or get the basis for that prima facie in order to help her prepare her defense?
The question again is not clear at all. Hello?
Hello, lawyer, did you hear me?
No. The question again?
Yes, I'll try again. I'm saying that when we look at the supplementary affidavit that was originally struck out in the case in court, it would seem that she makes a request that, look, she hasn't had the basis for the prima facie case, and so she's not able to prepare her defense, so to speak. I'm asking, is there a place in law for that she needs that in order to prepare her defense, especially when the president is already giving her the 3 petitions?
You see, let's break it down so we can all understand. Prima facie simply means that is there a case to hand? And if there's a case to answer, then the committee will be formed. So as far as the consultation between the president and the state, what they took the view that they have a question to answer, and therefore they should establish a committee, which has been done. Now, a supplementary affidavit is not or cannot be relied upon as a matter of course. When you file an application, it is always accompanied by an affidavit. And in the affidavit, you spell out the grounds, which you rely upon when you are moving the court and also making your argument. So your submission, with both factual and legal. So the factual depositions are the matters, material facts that the applicants will rely upon, and then it should be supported by, a legal argument. So the two together will assist the applicant to move the court and then leave the court to decide one way or the other whether the application succeeds or it will fail. Now, if you want to rely on additional information that was not contained in the original affidavit, you have to take the lead of the court, in order to file and rely on it. If leave was not sought, you cannot rely on it, and it should be struck out. If leave was sought and the court, admitted and adopted it, then it was merely because the content has been admitted and cannot be struck out. So I don't see the argument about this documentary affidavit. I think it's a talisman that ought to have been admitted willingly. It doesn't follow that way in the courtroom. In the courtroom, you have to obtain prior leave of the court before you can file rely on a supplementary affidavit. So it's not a matter of course. Unlike the main affidavit in support of the motion.
I see. Lawyer, thank you so much for those points. Dr. Zato, I'm sure there's a lot you want to react to, especially on the issue of fairness. Is that the case?
Well, no, thank you very much. And as I said, there was something that, once again, I think that is important here. My point is very clear on this, that two big institutions, organizations have come out to publicly state that the process is not fair. They've said it. The Ghana Bar Association says it's not fair. That's not Dr. Zato talking. That's the Ghana Bar. The parliament, the majority leader, acknowledged that. He do that by saying that there are certain provisions the law that needs later. That is a tacit acknowledgement that that process too is not fair. That's what I'm saying. But what is now happening now? I know that we cannot, like as Martin said, the law does not make for. You cannot say because of what you know. But that doesn't mean that the process is not fair. That's my point. I'm not saying that, because you said this. No, the law has been made. The law is that we are using the existing law. But the existing law we are using to sack her is not fair.
Dr. Zato, what isn't fair to you in the process?
I'm saying that is what the existing law, I would refer to those institutions. 3, somebody then said one thing. The Ghana Bar Association made a decision. It was just a very few of them that made a decision. I agree. It was a few of them. But the Ghana Bar Association has laws. Those laws do indicate when and how a decision can be made by the Ghana Bar to be representative of the whole bar. By their own laws, they have a quorum. I think they did. Because they have a quorum, they made a decision on behalf of all the lawyers in this country, and their decision that's not fair. That's what I'm saying. And I give an example, for instance, that Parliament, they're saying that there are boycotts in Parliament. But you cannot say because there's a boycott that you've left, the law we've made is an NDC law, it's an NPP law. You cannot say because you've boycotted and then we've come out with a minister, it's an NDC minister or NPP. You cannot say that. Precisely because Parliament, in making that law, had their quorum or made their figure. So the argument by these two illustrious organizations is that the process is not fair. And that is the process we are using to go for this woman. It is based on all this that I didn't come to my conclusion that the woman is a goner. It is based on this that I'm saying that the woman has left. No. I'm not the one saying the person.
But we know that the impeachment process is not only there to determine your exit. Yes. We could go through the process and they'll say that no, there's nothing.
So my hypothesis is that
my question is why does everybody?
My hypothesis is that she's gone. Yeah. My hypothesis is that based on everything I've seen so far, based on the corpus and the gamut of information, everything there, I'll tell you one of the reasons I've come.
The actual thing has not even gone to anywhere.
But I'm saying it's gone. Okay, one day I hope we will meet and then you say, Doc, you lied. But let's listen. There's one thing that I've seen. The Council of State is supposed to sit in the conclave, right? Their decision there is covered and we are not supposed to see what happens there. The Council of State comes out with their legal decision. I've already made a point. Akufo Addo made it public. Agree or disagree with him is there. President Mahama hasn't made it public. We don't know how they got to that legal decision of yes. But something else happened. Ghana Web reported that in a news story that the communications director of the NDC actually know how they voted in the conclave. That he came out to say that the vote in that conclave, in that secretive conclave, was 30 to 1.
No, he said that after it was made public.
By whom? Made public by whom?
It was in the Council of State.
The Council of State has not come out with a
declaration. It was in the media. I read it in the media.
Please.
Sorry.
And again, I just want to put on record that we haven't reported that.
I'm not saying you have. I'm not saying you have. No, I'm not saying you have. I'm saying that media reports directly quoting. I can the National Communications Director of the NDC quoted him saying that the vote in the conclave was 30 to 1. In fact, some media houses actually goes along to say that the person who voted abstain was the former Chief Justice.
Yeah.
My question is, so far, I haven't seen, maybe is there an official response from the Council of State debunking or denying that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Council of State coming out to reprimand somebody because, look, I'm a Catholic. The Catholics, we just went through a conclave to elect the Pope. Imagine somebody publishing news authoritatively that this was how the cardinals actually voted. You will be excommunicated. The conclave or the Catholic Church, Vatican will come with a statement. The Council of State has also, the only thing we now have to go with is the statement that has come out by not a new person. If it was a foot soldier of the NDC, I wouldn't say anything. If it was a foot soldier, but it's the National Communications Director of the NDC saying that he not only did he know how they voted, but that he actually saw the ballot. Because if you don't see the ballot, you cannot say 30 voted for them. How did he get it?
And for Sammy say you saw the ballot.
No, I'm imputing that. If you say 30 voted for and 1 against, how did you see the 30?
No, but Alex is explaining that Sammy was quoting.
I'm hoping and praying that the Council of State, for its own integrity, for its own, will issue a statement debunking those allegations and then putting it so that we know that their deliberations were truly secret. And
haven't we long gone past that?
No, we haven't. It's so important for us because look, today, if I'm teaching students and I'm telling them that decision making, public policy decision making, this decision was made. But then somebody tells me, but you said that the decision was supposed to be secret. But how then do we know this? What do I tell them? Do I tell the students that yes, your question is valid or your question is not valid? I'm saying that this case can be put to rest if the Council of State were to issue the formal statement and say, look, we did our constitutional rule. We advised the president. But we cannot comment on or we refute their allegations because see, there are institutions in this country that care about their integrity. Remember when Honorable Adongo came out and made statements about monetary policy by the Bank of Ghana? Swiftly, the Bank of Ghana issued a statement to disclaim that. Because the Bank of Ghana wants to maintain and keep its integrity and sanity. I am saying that the Council of State ought to learn from that. To also say, look, this never happened. This is not our record. Let it go. But if you leave it hanging like that, we are forced to believe that there's merit to that.
I see. We'll take it now to Professor Gyampo. Prof, your finger has been up for a while now.
Yes, Kemini, I am finding it difficult how in appreciating why Joshua Zato wants to stretch the argument of unfairness. And the argument that is about the processes not being unfair isn't as a result of his own appreciation of the issues, but he's citing others. And I'm telling him respectfully that you cannot stretch what the majority leader said to insinuate unfairness. The majority leader hasn't said the process is unfair. He said that some more clarity and definition can be brought to the procedure or to the process. And respectfully, we all went to primary school to do English comprehension. How does this get stretched to that level or to that angle that one will say that by force, the majority leader has said that the process is unfair, and so someone would want to use that as a basis to make any argument? The other bit is that I still want to make the point that you would have to refer, you see, in philosophy that we studied, there is a fallacy called argumentum ad verecundiam, appealing to false authority. The GBA as it stands now is not an authority to be referred to in anything. If the GBA says the process is unfair, I find it difficult how anybody, if not not even the GB as a whole. If just about 40 people out of the 8,000 membership.
No, but Prof, that point has been argued that there was a quorum.
Let me hammer that point. Let me hammer that point. If just for the purposes of argument, if the GBA says the processes are unfair, will you say that the GBA, as it currently stands now, is an authority that can be referred to or can be cited? If an authority can be cited, then there should have some credibility. And I'm saying that we don't want the GBA that behaves like a group of people that only goes out there to pray when the party they don't like is in power. And then they shut up. All of a sudden, they stop praying when the party they like gets to power. And even when the party they like is not doing what is right, they shut up. If you do that, you lose credibility. And so my point is that the GBA over the years has only been heard when NDC is in power. Let us state it bluntly. They keep quiet, they shut up, the misgovernance, the bad governance, and all the things that Akufo Addo perpetrated on Ghana. Did you hear GBA talking? No. So I find it nauseating when anybody wants to refer to what they have said as a basis to make any analysis, in such an important important platform like this. So my point is that if we say the processes are unfair, let us have a full grasp and appreciation of the sources and traces of unfairness. If you want to talk about the fact that the woman is saying her husband was not allowed to go with her, and so you think it's an unfair, that may be your opinion. But I've heard a lawyer say, saying that legally there is nothing unfair about it. But Martin Kweku tells us that, well, it wouldn't have hurt anything. If that is your description, or you want to use that as a basis to say, well, maybe something could have been done about that, I mean, we can go that route of argument. But we have studied the processes, how the whole thing has evolved up to now. The fact that John Mahama has not behaved like a political rascal in handling this. He has even gone out of his way to show many acts of magnanimity in handling this matter. And then you are saying the processes are not fair. So for many, the processes will be fair only when it is discontinued, and then the woman, the prima facie case or the issues raised are just thrown into the garbage. Will that be what will constitute fairness? I think that we must be serious and dispassionate, in analyzing some of these things. If you say that the processes are unfair, you yourself list those sources of unfairness and let us all appreciate.
I see very well.
To quote the Ghana Bar Association's position as a basis to make any argument, for me, will be that you are committing a fallacy of argumentum ad verecundiam.
No, but Prof, I thought you were going to make...
It is completely disingenuous for you, Jampo, to now say that I cannot quote an authority or rely on authority. The Ghana Bar Association is an authority. It's a representative of lawyers. No, gentlemen,
let's have him make his point. Let's have him make his point.
When you are elected president,
you cannot tell me that
on the evening election, you took us on the strike on the election. The vote for that election was not 100%.
And then
gentlemen, stick with the issue.
What are you talking about?
Dr. Zato, stick with the issue.
I'm sticking with the issue.
No, we are not talking about you, Tax.
No,
let's take it.
Because the person there, he's sincere attacking me. For my position, I'm not attacking. You took us to strike on the eve of an election. The decision was not 100% voted by UTAG. But UTAG made the legal requirements to declare strike. They did.
It was quorum.
That's the same point I'm making. You can't make that strike. Even when Labour called off the strike, you still insisted that we should stay on the strike.
Most lawyers were not even aware.
I'm not saying we were
get notice.
So you did that. You made decisions like that. Today you are saying that I shouldn't use this.
We can't hear you if all of you talk. No, we can't hear. We can't.
What I'm saying is that you did the same thing. You did the same thing as you.
Pull your brakes. Pull your brakes. If all of you talk at the same time, the viewers will only enjoy the raffles, but we won't understand what you're saying. So please finish.
Professor Gyampo is saying that I cannot base my analysis on the decision of GBA, Ghana Bar Association.
Yes.
Because the Ghana Bar Association, according to him, only 40 people make a decision. Okay, this is my argument. I can and I will, and I'm doing that. Because nobody has come out to say that the Ghana Bar Association doesn't have the power under their own bylaws and laws to make that declaration. Nobody has come to say that. It doesn't matter if there's one person, but if the law says or their own internal rules agree that they can make that decision, they made. So it's an authority now, I am telling you. And then I give an example to illustrate that. You were our UTAC president and Legon. You took us to a strike, or the UTAC members voted for a strike on the eve of an election. An election of which you are now a very big beneficiary. It wasn't 100% of UTAC members who voted for that strike. No. Yeah. Some people abstained. So, in fact, I know a union, UPSA, that almost was against that strike. But we went because that was a collective decision. We went on that strike. Right, you are not the biggest beneficiary of that strike. How can you say that we cannot also do that to another union when they make a decision? We can and we should. And that's what I'm doing.
Zato.
Yo, it for winning and someone about beto yepono so Mikao says so when you subscribe to channel idea bomodi say obe subscribe now I like video to give us a thumbs up nafi share ma wo foforo so na we be here now and somewhere koso ewo Ghana memo also wait me atchere wadwen afa yeah some we nyira ho ewo comment box ni mu mo beti nka bio in my next video.
Thanks for watching. Like and share the video. You can also drop your comment. Please don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to turn on the notification.